Have you ever felt like your intelligence was more of a burden than a gift? That moment when you shared an insight only to be met with blank stares, or, worse, hostility. What if society doesn't just fail to reward intelligence, but actively punishes it? Today, we're diving into one of Nietzsche's most provocative ideas, that our world systematically penalizes those who think too deeply, see too clearly, or question too boldly. The gifted minds who push beyond conventional thinking often find themselves isolated and misunderstood. But why? What is it about human nature and social structures that creates this paradox? Stay with me as we explore how the very traits we claim to value, creativity, perception, and intellectual courage, often lead to rejection and isolation for those who possess them in abundance. The average person finds comfort in belonging, in having their beliefs mirrored by those around them. This herd mentality, as Nietzsche called it, creates a powerful sense of security, the reassurance that comes from thinking like everyone else. When someone steps outside these collective beliefs, they disrupt this comforting sameness. Their questions and insights create cognitive dissonance, forcing others to question assumptions they've never examined. Have you noticed how quickly people unite against those who challenge shared illusions? The intelligent person becomes a walking reminder of uncomfortable truths and unexplored possibilities. They expose the contradictions we've learned to ignore and the compromises we've made with ourselves. Their very existence becomes a form of accusation. Rather than face these discomforts, society finds it easier to marginalize the messenger. The intelligent often threaten something even more fundamental than comfort. They challenge power structures built on shared myths and unexamined traditions. Think about religious heretics throughout history, condemned not for being wrong, but for questioning what must not be questioned. Or consider how whistleblowers are treated today, even when they expose genuine wrongdoing. The pattern remains consistent. Those who see through collective illusions become targets. Intelligence creates a particularly painful form of isolation when it allows someone to predict problems others cannot yet see. Imagine warning about economic collapse during a boom, environmental catastrophe during prosperity, or moral decay hidden beneath social progress. You're not just disagreeing, you're living in a different timeline, seeing a future others can't comprehend. They're celebrating while you're sounding alarms they can't understand. Throughout history, we see this pattern repeated. Cassandra cursed to speak truths no one would believe, Galileo forced to recant his astronomical findings, or Alan Turing, whose brilliant mind was punished rather than celebrated. These weren't just differences of opinion. They were fundamental disconnections between how these individuals perceived reality and how their societies demanded reality be seen. What's truly tragic is how often these intelligent outsiders internalize this rejection. The intelligent person faces a painful choice: conform and deny their own perception, or remain true to their insights and accept isolation. This is the first punishment society inflicts, forcing a choice between intellectual integrity and human connection. And this dilemma shapes not just individual lives, but the course of human progress itself. How many insights have been silenced? How many innovations delayed? Because the social cost of speaking truth was too high. Imagine living in a world where you consistently see what others cannot, or will not, see. You notice the subtle contradictions in political speeches that others applaud. You recognize the early warning signs of relationship problems friends ignore. You perceive the long-term consequences of decisions while others focus only on immediate benefits. This heightened perception, this inability to unsee what has been seen, becomes its own form of suffering. The intelligent person carries the weight of unwelcome knowledge, things they wish they could forget but cannot. They see the environmental collapse hidden beneath economic growth, the manipulation behind inspiring rhetoric, the self-interest disguised as altruism. While others find comfort in simple narratives, the perceptive mind is cursed with complexity. And have you noticed how rarely people thank you for pointing out uncomfortable truths? Society has created elaborate systems to maintain comfortable illusions, from consumerism that promises fulfillment through purchases to nationalism that channels tribal instincts into modern identities. When someone questions these structures, they threaten not just ideas, but identities. Think about how people react when their political views are challenged. The resistance isn't intellectual, but emotional, even visceral. They're defending not just opinions, but their sense of who they are. Those with heightened perception often develop a tragic kind of double consciousness. They must live simultaneously in the world as it is, and the world as others believe it to be. They learn to translate between these realities, to speak in ways that won't trigger rejection. Consider how scientists must carefully frame climate research to avoid backlash, or how workplace innovators learn to present new ideas without threatening established hierarchies. This constant translation exhausts the spirit. What's particularly painful is that the intelligent person often sees others making choices that lead to suffering, yet any attempt to intervene is resisted or resented. You watch friends pursue relationships you know will end badly. Colleagues support policies that hurt them. Societies embracing destructive patterns. Like watching someone walking toward a cliff while angrily insisting no danger exists. This helpless witnessing becomes its own form of torture. The curse of perception explains why so many brilliant minds throughout history turn to alcohol, drugs, or other escapes. David Foster Wallace, Vincent van Gogh, Ernest Hemingway, all sought relief from the burden of seeing too clearly. There's a reason the correlation between intelligence and depression has been repeatedly documented. When you can't stop perceiving the world's contradictions and hypocrisies, sometimes the only escape is to numb the mind that won't stop noticing. Deep down, humans instinctively fear those who are significantly smarter than they are. This isn't simply jealousy. It's an ancient, almost primal response to potential threat. Throughout evolutionary history, intelligence has been the ultimate competitive advantage, the trait that allows one human to outmaneuver another. When we encounter someone whose mind works at a level beyond our comprehension, that ancient alarm system activates. Consider how intelligence is portrayed in our cultural narratives. The evil genius, the mad scientist, the manipulative mastermind. From Frankenstein to modern supervillains, we repeatedly tell stories about brilliant minds who threaten humanity. These aren't random tropes. They reflect our collective anxiety about intelligence unbound by common moral constraints. Have you noticed that in many films, the villain is brilliant, while the hero relies on more relatable qualities like courage or determination? This fear manifests in subtle social mechanisms that keep the intelligent in their place. The gifted child learns to hide their abilities to avoid bullying. The insightful employee learns to present ideas as if they came from the boss. The brilliant woman downplays her intelligence in dating situations. These aren't random adaptations. They're responses to consistent social punishment of perceived intellectual superiority. What makes this dynamic particularly troubling is how it shapes power structures. Societies often don't want the most intelligent people making decisions. They want leaders who reflect and reinforce common values and perceptions. Studies repeatedly show that politicians with average intelligence and exceptional social skills outperform brilliant candidates who lack the common touch. We claim to value intelligence, but we consistently elect relatable over remarkable. The intelligent person quickly learns that displaying their full abilities triggers social backlash. They develop a kind of protective camouflage, hiding their vocabulary, simplifying their ideas, feigning interest in topics that bore them. This constant self-dimming exacts a psychological toll. Imagine spending your life playing a role, never fully expressing your true capabilities. Always translating your thoughts into simplified versions others will accept. Perhaps most painfully, intelligence often creates a catch-22 in human relationships. The same perceptiveness that allows someone to understand others deeply to see beyond facades and connect with authentic needs, simultaneously creates barriers to equal exchange. The intelligent person understands others better than they themselves are understood. This asymmetry in perception creates a fundamental loneliness that can't be resolved through ordinary social connection. Are you familiar with this particular form of isolation? Intelligent people often function as mirrors, reflecting back aspects of reality others prefer not to see. When they analyze social dynamics, point out logical inconsistencies, or question established practices, they're not just offering ideas, they're holding up a mirror to collective blind spots. Most people instinctively turn away from such reflections, preferring comfortable distortions to uncomfortable clarity. This mirror effect explains why intelligent criticism triggers such intense emotional responses. When someone accurately identifies the flaws in your argument, the contradictions in your beliefs, or the patterns in your behavior, they're not just disagreeing, they're seeing you with unsettling clarity. Has anyone ever described you so accurately it felt like an invasion? That's the discomfort intelligent perception creates. The workplace provides countless examples of this dynamic. The employee who points out flaws in the company's new initiative isn't typically rewarded for their insight. They're labeled negative or not a team player. The student who asks the question revealing the professor's knowledge gap becomes the troublemaker, not the truth seeker. The friend who gently identifies the pattern in your failed relationships might lose your friendship, despite or because of their accuracy. Social groups maintain coherence partly through shared blind spots, collective agreements about what will not be examined too closely. When intelligent observers refuse to honor these implicit contracts, they threaten group cohesion. Consider religious communities that ostracize members who ask forbidden questions, or political movements that exile those who point out contradictions in the party line. The intelligent person quickly learns that accuracy and acceptance rarely go hand in hand. What makes this particularly painful is that the intelligent person often isn't trying to cause discomfort. They're simply seeing patterns and speaking truth as naturally as breathing. Their perception isn't a choice, but an inevitable function of how their mind works. They can learn to suppress their observations, to participate in collective pretenses. But this self-censorship comes at significant psychological cost. Many eventually retreat to solitary pursuits where unfiltered perception is an asset rather than a liability. Perhaps the cruelest aspect of this dynamic is how it transforms intelligence from gift to burden. The same pattern recognition that makes someone brilliant in their field makes them disruptive in social settings. The same analytical clarity that solves complex problems creates interpersonal friction. Is it any wonder that many highly intelligent people eventually question whether their cognitive abilities are worth the social cost they exact? For the highly intelligent, existential loneliness often begins in childhood. Imagine being 8 years old and contemplating mortality while your peers discuss video games, or questioning religious teachings while others accept them without doubt. These early experiences create a profound sense of difference, a feeling of being a strange visitor in a world where no one speaks your language. As adults, this sense of fundamental disconnection often persists. The intelligent mind's tendency to analyze, question, and reconstruct creates barriers to casual connection. While others enjoy simple pleasures without examination, the analytical mind habitually deconstructs experiences, looking for patterns, questioning assumptions, exploring implications. Have you ever been told you're thinking too much about something everyone else simply enjoys? That moment captures the essential divide intelligence creates. What amplifies this isolation is the inability to fully share one's inner world. When your thoughts regularly venture into territory others find unfamiliar or uncomfortable, you learn to withhold significant portions of your experience. Conversations remain on surfaces while deeper currents run unseen. Over time, this partial communication creates a sense of being perpetually masked, never fully known or understood by those around you. The internet initially promised to solve this problem. Intelligent minds could finally find their tribes across geographic boundaries. But in practice, online spaces often amplify rather than resolve the isolation. Finding others who share your intellectual interests doesn't necessarily mean finding true connection. The same analytical tendencies that create distance in physical relationships often manifest online as well. True intellectual intimacy remains extraordinarily rare. Perhaps most painfully, intelligence creates a specific form of existential isolation, the awareness of fundamental human limitations and cosmic insignificance. While others find comfort in religious certainties or cultural narratives, the analytical mind often sees through these consolations. Like the figures in Plato's cave allegory, who return from seeing reality only to find they can no longer communicate with those still watching shadows, the intelligent person lives with truths they cannot fully share. This isolation helps explain why so many brilliant minds throughout history have struggled with depression, addiction, and suicidal thoughts. Friedrich Nietzsche himself spent his final years in mental collapse. Virginia Woolf walked into a river with stones in her pockets. David Foster Wallace hanged himself after a lifelong battle with depression. The connection between exceptional intelligence and psychological suffering isn't coincidental. It reflects the profound challenge of living with perceptions others don't share. Society claims to value original thinking, but its structures systematically reward conformity. From education systems that prioritize standardized testing to corporate ladders that favor team players over visionaries, our institutions are designed to cultivate and reward predictable behavior. The truly original thinker quickly discovers that expressions of genuine individuality are met with resistance rather than welcome. Consider how we treat intellectual nonconformity compared to more superficial forms of rebellion. Someone with unusual fashion or musical tastes might be celebrated for their uniqueness, while someone who questions fundamental assumptions about economics, politics, or social structures faces genuine opposition. We permit cosmetic rebellion while punishing substantive challenges to our worldviews. Have you noticed how quickly conversations change when you question truly sacred beliefs? The punishment for intellectual nonconformity goes beyond social rejection. It often includes material consequences: careers stalled, opportunities denied, relationships strained. Throughout history, those who think too far outside accepted boundaries have faced consequences ranging from professional setbacks to imprisonment or worse. Socrates was forced to drink hemlock. Galileo faced house arrest. Today's punishments may be less dramatic but remain potent. The brilliant employee whose promotions mysteriously stall, the insightful scientist whose funding disappears. What makes this particularly painful is how nonconformity creates a no-win situation. Express your true thoughts and face rejection. Conceal them and experience the quiet desperation of living inauthentically. This double bind forces many intelligent people into a perpetual calculation. How much truth can I speak? How authentic can I be without triggering backlash? This constant self-monitoring creates its own form of psychological exhaustion. The pressure to conform doesn't just affect individual lives, it shapes the development of knowledge itself. Truly revolutionary ideas in science, philosophy, and the arts typically face initial resistance, often delaying human progress by decades. Thomas Kuhn's concept of paradigm shifts explains why. Established frameworks resist disruption, and those who propose fundamentally new ways of seeing face institutional barriers. The history of human knowledge is partly a history of ideas that were punished before they were praised. Perhaps most profoundly, intellectual nonconformity creates existential questions about belonging itself. If your natural way of thinking consistently places you outside social consensus, where is your true home? If authentic expression of your mind creates distance from others, how do you balance integrity and connection? These are not abstract questions, but lived dilemmas for those whose intelligence consistently places them at odds with prevailing beliefs. With greater intellectual capacity comes a heightened sense of responsibility that others often don't understand. The person who sees problems more clearly often feels a stronger obligation to address them. This burden weighs heavily on the intelligent mind, knowing that your insights could help but might be rejected, seeing solutions others can't perceive, feeling compelled to act while others remain comfortably passive. The intelligent person often experiences a form of ethical torment, seeing the long-term consequences of collective choices others ignore. Climate scientists watching carbon levels rise while society continues business as usual. Economists recognizing unsustainable financial patterns others celebrate. Public health experts identifying threats before they become crises. This foresight becomes a special kind of suffering, watching preventable disasters unfold in slow motion while warnings go unheeded. Vision creates another unique burden, the gap between what is and what could be. Average minds often accept reality as given, but the intelligent mind constantly reimagines possibilities. This capacity for envisioning better alternatives creates a perpetual dissatisfaction with present conditions. What others accept without question becomes, for the visionary intellect, a source of ongoing frustration. Have you felt that particular ache, seeing so clearly how things could improve while watching society cling to dysfunctional patterns? The intelligent are often caught in a painful paradox, having the capacity to help solve complex problems while lacking the authority or influence to implement solutions. This creates a special form of helplessness, more devastating than simple inability. It's one thing to be powerless because you lack capacity. It's another to have capacity but be denied the opportunity to use it. Think about brilliant minds trapped in bureaucracies, visionaries stifled by short-sighted leadership, or innovators whose ideas die in committee meetings. The weight of knowledge itself becomes a burden when that knowledge includes awareness of suffering, injustice, or threats others don't perceive. While many find comfort in not knowing, the intelligent person often can't escape their understanding of harsh realities. They see the exploitation behind consumer products, the manipulation behind political messaging, the human costs of policies discussed in abstract terms. This awareness doesn't allow for the comfortable ignorance many others enjoy. Perhaps most poignantly, intelligence often creates a sense of obligation to future generations, a responsibility to use one's insights to address problems that extend beyond a single lifetime. This long-term thinking places the intelligent person at odds with societies focused on immediate concerns and quick solutions. Like Cassandra in Greek mythology, they're cursed with seeing futures others cannot perceive, carrying knowledge of potential calamities while those around them remain focused on today's comforts and conveniences. What does all this reveal about our relationship with intelligence? Perhaps that we're profoundly ambivalent about those who see too clearly or think too deeply. We celebrate intelligence in principle, but punish it in practice when it challenges our comfort. The tragedy is that the very minds that could help solve our most pressing problems are often the ones we silence or sideline. This raises a profound question. What kind of society might we create if we truly valued clarity over comfort, truth over convenience? The experience of the intelligent outsider reveals something essential about human nature: our deep attachment to shared illusions and our resistance to those who threaten them. Perhaps Nietzsche was right when he suggested that humans prefer the security of familiar falsehoods to the vertigo of unfamiliar truths. But this preference comes at tremendous cost, both to exceptional individuals and to society's progress. What potential remains unrealized because we punish our most perceptive minds? For those watching who recognize themselves in this description, who felt the sting of rejection for seeing too clearly or speaking too honestly, know that you're part of a lineage stretching back through authority. The price of perception has always been high, but those willing to pay it have moved humanity forward. Your discomfort is not a flaw, but a feature of a mind doing exactly what the most evolved human minds are designed to do. perceiving reality with exceptional clarity. The ultimate question isn't whether society will stop punishing intelligence. History suggests it won't. But whether those blessed and burdened with exceptional minds can find ways to remain both sane and authentic in a world that often prefers comforting illusions. Perhaps the answer lies not in changing society, but in finding the few others who share your perception, who value truth over comfort, who understand the particular loneliness of seeing what others don't. Remember that many of history's most transformative thinkers were rejected in their time, before being celebrated posthumously. Your intelligence may separate you from the majority, but it connects you to the extraordinary minds who've faced similar challenges throughout human history. In that understanding, that your struggle is both uniquely yours and part of an ancient pattern, there may be a kind of solace that those with average perception never need to seek. So what will you do with your clarity of vision? Will you dim your light to fit in? Or will you accept the isolation that comes with seeing clearly? Will you speak truth knowing it may not be welcomed? Or retreat into comfortable silence? These aren't just philosophical questions, but practical ones that shape individual lives and collective progress. The answer you choose doesn't just define your journey. It influences whether humanity advances toward greater understanding or remains trapped in comfortable illusions.